Beauty, diversity.
Change is pain. This was a statement that I came across in my coaching certification studies. It explained the possible physiological effects of change on the brain. And that hit me. Change is pain. Wow. So while I'd like to come up here as a life coach and say change is good for us all, I can't. Because the orchestrator or the author of the narrative of your change is you. Say me. Oh, did you say me? Say me. Me. So whether change is good or whether it is bad, it is up to you. Say me. So let's explore an example of this. In a book that many of you have probably heard of called Who Moved My Cheese, there is a change that happens, or the cheese is moved. Now, in this change of circumstance, we as the readers are left to observe the four characters and their response or their reaction to change and their adaptation to change. Each one of the four characters' reactions being completely different. So what happens is when there is a change, we're left with this question. And the question is, who am I in the face of change? Who am I when it comes to adapting to change? So ask the question. I want to hear you ask, who am I? Who am I? So when you're asking yourself, who am I in the face of change, it is, who are you in your business dealings? Who am I in my personal relationships? Who am I in my career choices? Who are you in your relationship to the perspective of the world that has changed around you? I propose to you today 3 ways which you can maneuver through change. Not just manage the change, but I'm talking about 3 ways in which you can come out successful on the other side. Number 1 is repurpose. Number 2 is rebrand. And number 3 is reposition. So I'm going to have you say those with me. Number 1, repurpose.
Repurpose.
Number 2 is
Rebrand.
And number 3 is reposition.
Reposition.
So just a few short years ago, I found myself having to do my own repurposing, my own rebranding, my own repositioning. I was coming up on 20 years in the educational sector. I had moved from being an educator to an educational consultant at a very prestigious company. It was a coveted position. I made good money plus commission. I had a company car. I had a company credit card. I even had a gas card, or I guess here you'd say a petrol card, so I didn't even have to come out of my own pocket to pay for any expenses as they related to the company. Can someone say good?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And even my boss, she was awesome. She actually hired me against the will of a lot of people because my position was always filled from within. So it was an internally filled position. You know, they just posted it outside because they had to, but they never planned to fill it. But she hired me and I was an outsider getting hired in. Life was very good Until, someone say until, my boss, out of the blue, got another position in the company, switched departments, and was replaced by someone new. And I have to tell you that upon my first one-on-one interaction with my new boss, I knew this was not going to be a good ride. Someone had moved my cheese. Someone had changed the circumstances around me. So the first question I was left to ask myself was, I bet you know this question, who am I? And when I got really quiet and I searched my soul, there was an answer that came out. That this person, me, who was of an entrepreneurial spirit, was completely out of alignment working at this 9-to-5 job, regardless of who my boss had been. So then I knew it was time to repurpose, rebrand, and reposition myself. Number one, repurpose. Let me hear you say it. Repurpose. So this was very hard because the thing I had known, the thing that I had done for nearly 2 decades, in my heart, I had to tell myself, and in my heart, I had to begin to grapple with that the thing that I was still doing was no longer my purpose. It was as simple as that. And that was a hard decision, and it was a difficult one to admit to myself. So I had to begin to think about, if this isn't my purpose, then it needs to shift. So I flip this over to you as we think about repurpose. In the face of change, who are you? Just because you've done something for a long time, are you walking in your purpose? Are you in alignment with your purpose? Repurpose. Number 2, rebrand. So everything starts in the mind, right? And I had to begin to, listen, let me say this to you. Teaching is not a bad thing. It's an admirable thing. And where I come from in the States, it's very good. Like, people actually think you're a martyr. When you say you're a teacher, they're like, oh, you're a martyr, bless you. You know, but I had to emotionally separate myself from the very thing I had identified with. I had to rebrand myself as an entrepreneur. But here's the key. I had no clue what I was going to do next, but I knew that I couldn't stay branded as an educator. So when I turned in my letter of resignation, I was getting calls from the managers and from the directors, and they were saying to me, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And because I had no clue, I came up with an answer that sounded something like this. Oh, thank you for calling. I just want to make myself available for personal projects when they come up. I'm sure that was one of the most confusing answers that they had ever heard. But it was the best I had, because I wasn't ready yet to call myself self-employed. Rebrand. Number 3, reposition. This, even as I talk to you now, I can feel it, was one of the most fear-inducing things that I had to do. Repositioning. See, I knew that if I didn't reposition myself and I stayed right there in that position, any goal, any of those dreams that I had, I would not reach any of them. In fact, I wouldn't even be standing here in this country today. So what I had to do was, in order to reposition myself for success, I had to abandon my career. So when you think about repositioning yourself, you ask yourself in the face of change, who am I? And when you think about the position you're in versus the position you should be in, do you feel the fear and do it anyway? Or do you feel the fear and dig in your heels and say, no, I won't reposition myself? Listen, that's reposition. Listen, change will come. Many of us in this room today experienced the biggest global change that many of us will ever see in our lifetimes. However, in spite of the global punch in the stomach that many of us have felt, this could be your shining opportunity to rebrand and reposition yourselves. Let's say those three things again. To repurpose. Let's try everyone this time. Repurpose, rebrand, and reposition. And when you think about the opportunity, I want you to think about this quote that was spoken by Arius Noom. It talks about when the risk to remain in the bud was more riskier than going outside of it. That is when the flower took its time to bloom. So as you think about your repurposing, your rebranding, and your repositioning, and for sure, there will be fear that you feel. And indeed, change may be pain, but in the end, you are the author of the outcome of the change in your life. How will your story read? Thank you.